In the wake of the Beatles' final U.S. tour in 1966, Paul McCartney found himself captivated by the creative spirit and unconventional names of the West Coast hippie groups, such as Quicksilver Messenger Service, Jefferson Airplane, and Big Brother and the Holding Company. Inspired by their inventiveness, McCartney conceived the idea of an alter ego for the Beatles during a post-holiday flight from Nairobi to England in November of that year. This fictional persona would allow the band to perform an entire album before an audience, marking a departure from their established identity. As John Lennon later explained, Sgt. Pepper is Paul after a trip to America and the whole West Coast long-named group thing was coming in. You know, when people were no longer the Beatles or the Crickets. They were suddenly Fred and his incredible shrinking Grateful Airplanes. Lennon also noted that, while Sgt. Pepper is often regarded as the first concept album, its themes and ideas were not as cohesive as they might appear, with many of the songs being largely unrelated to the central concept. According to some accounts, it was the Beatles' road manager, Mal Evans, who came up with the name Sgt. Pepper. The inspiration allegedly stemmed from Evans asking McCartney what the letters S and P stood for on the salt and pepper sachets during their in-flight meal. Neil Aspinall, who shared a flat with Evans, recounted a story of McCartney visiting their home in February to work on a new song, which would eventually become the title track of the album. Aspinall suggested that Sgt. Pepper could serve as the compere of the album, introducing the band at the beginning and closing the show at the end. When McCartney later shared this idea with Lennon in the studio, Lennon reportedly quipped, "Nobody likes a smart arse, Neil." The song showcases a unique structure, alternating between straightforward rock verses and instrumental bridges featuring a French horn quartet, interspersed with three-part harmonies from McCartney, Lennon, and Harrison. Rather than a fully developed song, it serves as an introduction to the Sgt. Pepper concept. As McCartney explained, "I thought it would be nice to lose our identities, to submerge ourselves in the persona of a fake group. We could make up all the culture around it and collect all our heroes in one place." On the album, the title track seamlessly transitions into "With a Little Help from My Friends" and is later reprised before the grand finale, "A Day in the Life." The recording spanned 4 days in the studio. On February 1st, 1967, the Beatles recorded 9 takes of the rhythm track, with only the first and last being complete. The instrumentation included drums, bass, and 2 guitars played by McCartney and Harrison. The following day, McCartney laid down his lead vocals while he, Harrison, and Lennon added their harmonies. The song was then set aside for over a month until March 3rd, when the French horns were overdubbed, and McCartney recorded a lead guitar solo, bringing the track close to completion. On March 6th, the band added the sounds of an imaginary audience and the noise of an orchestra tuning up using a combination of crowd noise from a 1961 recording of the comedy show Beyond the Fringe and outtakes from the February 10th, 1967 orchestral overdub session for A Day in the Life. To create the seamless transition into "With a Little Help from My Friends," they incorporated screams of Beatlemaniacs from recordings of their live performances at the Hollywood Bowl. During the second recording session on February 2nd, 1967, which lasted from 7 p.m. to 1:45 a.m., McCartney added his lead vocals, joined by Lennon and Harrison in the chorus, onto track 4 of the tape. Additional harmonies were then overdubbed onto track 3. A reduction mix labeled Take 10 was created to free up space on the tape, consolidating the instruments onto track 1 and the vocals onto track 4. As the session drew to a close, a mono mix was made for demo purposes, which was subsequently pressed onto acetate discs, primarily to enable George Martin to score the brass parts that would be recorded a month later on March 3rd, 1967. The creation of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band marked the beginning of a groundbreaking and transformative era for the Beatles, as they embarked on a journey of musical experimentation and reinvention that would forever change the landscape of popular music.